All right, this is going to be a good one here for you guys. I promise. I got Chris Cain here from Bates Reels, and we've all been there. No matter how experienced or inexperienced you are, you get a brand new reel, you get a brand new Bates reel, and you open the box and you think, "Let's go! This is going to be the best reel I've had. It's going to be perfect for my inshore fishing, whatever fishing it is I do." And then you start trying to, I basically say tune it to fit the way you cast, tune it to get the best distance, the most accuracy, the fewest backlashes, if you if you will, or whatever. So Chris, this is where I want to go here.
Yeah.
We're going to go video and audio on this one because I think we need to show some folks really from out of the box to your best cast is what I sent you in terms of wanting to do this.
Yeah.
So let's go step by step. Chris Cain, of course, Bates reels. That's what I throw. That's what we throw. It's been fantastic, but I'm not going to lie, man. Even me, as many reels as I've had, as much fishing as I've done, as long as I've been on the water, sometimes I go, okay, so this one's a little different here. This one's a little different there. Let's start from the beginning, which is always good. You get out of your box. What are some of the first things people should do?
Yeah, man. So first of all, this is a great segment concept because we really do we get this I don't know, multiple times a week where we're having to walk people through this conversation.
And they're
So
probably on the
one of the
water.
things that's different. Sometimes it is. Yeah, sometimes it is. So it is definitely true that a base reel out of the box runs a little bit hotter than most other reels on the market. And so what that means for a lot of guys is if they try and set it up the way that they always set up all their other reels, they just end up with backlashes within the first couple casts. It's frustrating. You end up
Mhm.
setting the reel down. If it happens again, then you just kind of lose confidence in that new product and you don't pick it up again. So
Exactly.
uh, what what we would recommend for our reel, so if you take the reel out of the box, and I'm holding a hundo right here.
Hmm.
So any of our 100 size reels, they're going to be adjustable in the same manner as this one. And these really are the ones that if people have fits with any of our reels, it's this series of reel.
Hmm.
So take the reel out of the box and kind of conventional. So you're going to see a spool tension knob on the handle side of the reel. And then on the opposite face, you have a magnetic brake adjustment.
Hmm.
And then inside of the reel, you have something that we call it's a centrifugal brake is what it is. It's part of our matrix braking system.
Hmm.
But for most people, even though that's adjustable, if you do things right, you really shouldn't have to adjust it. So what we would recommend out of the box is that you take this magnetic dial
Hmm.
and dial it all the way up. So this is part of the unconventional part. People, I don't know if it's like a pride thing or
Ego,
I
macho.
don't know what it is. Like, yeah, like I don't want to admit that I need the brakes on my reels to cast effectively,
Right.
but because of how our reels are designed, the brakes are intended to be used. Your
Hmm.
the magnetic brakes in this reel are a better braking device, a more consistent device than your thumb is. And so what we would recommend out of the box is you dial that all the way up. So it's going to have like a number 8 that is on that dial. Go ahead and crank it all the way up to 8. And then on the opposite side, you have your spool tension knob. So this adjustment right here, that little bottle cap looking knob.
And that one's pretty common on
So
all reels.
that has it's pretty common, yeah, and historically people use that feature to really help adjust and dial in braking on a reel. Really on a baits reel, it's not intended to be adjusted as a means of breaking the reel so much as it is just to get the side to side play out of your spool.
Hmm.
So your spool, if you have that spool tension knob adjusted loosely, you should be able to feel that spool moving back and forth from left to
Hmm.
right. What we would say is go ahead and lock that spool tension knob down just enough to where there's barely a wiggle in that spool, and
Hmm.
then dial those brakes all the way up and then start making casts. And what you'll probably find is that in those first couple casts, there's going to be too much braking. You're not going to be able to give any kind of distance. It's going to feel clunky. And but if you adjust it from the top down and not the other way, then
Mm-hmm.
you'll have it's just going to go a lot better for you. So start at the top, start at the 8 setting, make a
Mm-hmm.
couple casts, dial it down a click or two.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it has adjustments from 0 to 8, you actually have more like 23 or 24 individual clicks of
Mm-hmm.
adjustment. And so just back it down one click at a time until you get to a breaking setting that is comfortable with you. For people that get these reels dialed in, no reel is backlash proof. We would never claim that about our reels. But for people that really get these things dialed in, you should get to a place where you you should not have to use much, if any, actual thumbing on the spool on a cast. So they really should be able to get dialed in pretty well for you if you do things the right way.
Now, what are you doing with the tension while you're clicking back? Leaving it alone?
I just leave the tension knob alone. Yeah, once I get that thing set, I don't ever touch it again. To be honest with you,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
there's kind of the old school idea that you want to get the tension knob set to where if you depress the thumb bar, that you want like the whatever the lure weight is to be able to pull the line down and hit the ground without causing a backlash or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I for baits reels, we would just kind of toss that sort of old wives' tale out the window. But because again, in our reel and our design, that really is not a setting that is intended to affect or alter the spool speed of the reel. Now it will if you crank it all the way down, it'll lock the thing up.
Yeah.
But we're really trying to avoid using that as a means of braking and allowing the centrifugal and the magnetic brakes to do what they're designed to do, which is to act upon the spool.
Now, one thing that I always tell people on my boat with a new reel, you get into I don't know if it's little little apprehensive or whatever. They start casting not like they would normally cast. I mean, cast like you normally whip it back and whip it forward like you would normally cast because a lot of then all of a sudden once you think you have it broken in or tuned in just the way you want, then you start casting normal, and all of a sudden you got to keep your cast exactly how you're doing it. Correct?
Sure, sure, yeah. So our reel should be able to adjust to whatever style of fishing you're used to doing, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our reels do function a lot more efficiently than some reels on the market do. And so, a lot of guys find that they really don't have to put as much energy into a cast as they did before
Mm-hmm.
owning a baits reel. But even if you are that guy, if you're the guy that's, the whip it back and full send it kind of dude, you should still be able to find a combination of our brakes that adjust to fit your style of fishing for sure.
Yeah, and so once you do get it dialed in the way you want, the cast obviously is going to vary in how you cast and the lure weight and all that. But the thing about baits is, if it's dialed in correctly, you should be able to get your furthest casts with minimal effort and minimal thumb pressure. I think some of us, including myself, I'm talking about me, always kind of just as a fallback plan, kind of keep a very light, thumb pressure on it, not to hold it, but just I guess it's out of force of habit. But the distance and everything should be just right.
And there are guys that they'll dismissively adjust those brakes way down and still use their thumb to cast just like they did any of the old number of bait casters that they've owned for 20 years. And our reels will do that too. I mean, if you're that guy and you're really good with your thumb, our reel will work the same. But we have engineered our braking system in such a way that the brakes, the magnets, and the centrifugal drum that's attached to the spool, those things should do most of the work for you.
All right. So, is there any situation scenario in which you do open the left side, if you as you're looking at it, to maybe adjust things?
Yeah, I mean yes. So I don't know that there's any specific scenario
Mm-hmm.
other than the person that attempts to adjust the brakes on their own still has trouble or difficulty with backlashes. Yeah, you can open up that side plate, and we have a whole video on the product page, the Hundo product page on our website that teaches you how to adjust that drum. And so you can adjust it so that there's more braking, more movement of that drum away from the spool. That's going to give you more control over the spool speed,
Mm-hmm.
or less, depending on what your preferences are. But yes, that brake is also 100% adjustable. There's 5 settings that are in there as well. So you really have a pretty big gamut of options available to you, depending on what your needs are, what your preferences are, all those sorts of things.
All right, a couple more things here for you. Chris Cain joining us from Bates Reels. But by and large, number one, you really don't need to if you just use the dial on the left side correctly. And then secondly, when you guys are, designing this reel, you're designing it for the fisherman. So you really don't need, just to be clear, you really don't need to use your thumb if you're got it dialed in correctly.
Yeah, most experienced anglers, guys that have fished bait casters for a long time, I mean, you see them pick up our reels, they get it dialed in, and then we have videos of this, but guys just sending it, and their thumb literally never touches the spool or the line at all.
All right. Do you have any don't do this things for people who are in the market?
Man, just a reiteration and saying something a different way. When you
Mhm.
open up the box and you the base reel, do not make your first cast with the magnetic brakes on 0. If
Yeah.
you do that, you
You'll have a
you
long
will
day.
bird nest. You're gonna have to cut line out. Yeah, yeah. It's not gonna be a great start to your baits fishing experience for sure.
Awesome. Well, certainly, down here where we are on the Gulf Coast here in the greater Houston area and up and down the coast, you can go to Fishing Tackle Unlimited and Baits, but retailers everywhere. Your website has more information on all this. And then the last thing, I know people are saying uh, right now to themselves, what about the drag? What about the drag? It may not tie in with what we're talking about here, but what can you tell us about the drag system on the Baits reel?
What the
Drag.
drag is going to do once you've made your cast, once you have a fish on, you're gonna have for our little frames and reels, you're gonna have a lot more stopping power than most guys are used to having with a bait caster. So depending on which product you have from baits, you've got anywhere from 14 to 22 or 23 pounds of drag.
Hmm.
So we've got some backbone built into our reels, and if you're looking at the reel, then you've got this star shaped adjustment
Hmm.
on the handle, the cranking arm side of your reel. That's your drag setting.
All right. Well, that's awesome. That's Chris Cain. I can tell you from experience, I've gotten a couple in the last year, and certainly have my eye on another one here real soon. But Chris, sure appreciate you guys joining us here.